Just because I feel a thing doesn't mean I have to act on it or have to express it. It's just a feeling I'm having, and that's okay, and there's nothing I need to do about it. Sometimes it's just I'm aware of it, and that's all I need to do is be aware of it.
The name of the show is called The Perspective Shift. I would like to ask you what perspective shift that you have experienced that you feel is the most profound.
The most profound perspective shift I've had. I think, so as I sit here and see what comes up is what perception has really shifted. That has ultimately made other perceptions shift. I've tried to think my way through my whole life. And I came to this realization of, have I ever really let myself feel life at all? So feel my feelings, feel the life flow through me rather than just try to basically be thinking about everything all the time, right? Because it seems like that's very much rewarded in our culture and society, right? Like thinking, cognition, but feelings even for men, right? It's not even allowed. But so I think that thing has really shifted a lot of other things inside of me, is like, I don't always have to try to think my way through things. Sometimes I just need to feel my way through life.
So the shift in perspective is allowing yourself to feel through life rather than just think through life.
Yes, because it made me realize that oftentimes with the thinking process, it just becomes a tactic to avoid, distract, or repress, or push down, or whatever words come to mind. But it becomes a process of, how do I not feel what I'm feeling? Because let me just think through it. Let me intellectualize it. Let me try to figure it out, rather than just like, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what's going on. And that has a lot of validity as well. So thought isn't just the only thing that's going to help me through this, but feeling it is going to help me through this process as well.
Okay. I'd like to come back to how that shows up in your life. But what I'd like to ask right now is, what brought you to that point of realization? What were you experiencing and dealing with that brought you to realize that perspective shift?
You know, as a therapist, I'm continually talking with people, right? And so it's very much oriented around, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And, you know, let's intellectualize everything that's going on in your life. Let's see if we can't talk it out. I mean, it's literally called talk therapy, right? Psychotherapy. And after a few years of doing that, I just kind of was like, feeling like there's something missing. Like, I don't think I'm fully able to help people make the changes they're seeking through just talking all the time, through our cognition, through our thinking, you know?
So that sounds like what you were thinking of at the time, but what did that look like in your life?
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at. Flowed into my own life when I started to realize, how am I also just talking and thinking about my own situations, my own life, my own changes in my life that I'm seeking? How am I also just focusing on, how do I think myself through this process, through this problem, through this issue? And when I started to recognize that process, I started to realize, I don't really allow myself to feel much of anything. One big thing that came to mind was like, I couldn't remember the last time that I cried. It had been maybe a decade or something. And I realized, holy shit, how much have I been holding in? How much have I not felt? How much have I denied myself the experience of really feeling these things because of, you know, I don't want to feel it. I'd rather just kind of try to figure it out and fix it all the time. So I think that's kind of how it showed up in my life, was through the process of trying to do talk therapy and realizing, oh, wait, that's what I do with myself too. I just try to talk myself out of everything and think myself through everything. So that's kind of how it arose.
Why do you think you were denying yourself feeling your sensations?
Boy, I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes up for that. You know, part of it is, you know, growing up with a father who was very much, you know, he's from Mexico, so there's a lot of machismo. So there's a lot of like, you know, not allowed to show any emotions, definitely not crying, right, specifically. So it's definitely some of that, right, some familial stuff. I think just also it gets reinforced through what it is to like be a boy, right, and then a young man, and then a man, is like that when you express emotions, express feelings, your friends, even as I could remember in second grade and, you know, growing up and even as I became an adult, like that men maintain this arena of, hey, keep that shit out of here kind of thing, that they'll kind of hassle you, kind of maybe throw some jabs at you, like, or just full on, like, kind of make fun of you because you're feeling something. And so I think all of those kind of wrap up into this experience of like, hey, you're better off just not to express your emotions or feel at all, because everybody around you keeps telling you that's not the way to be the best you can be in this life. I mean, that's the way I'm summarizing it, but that's kind of like what I understood without knowing the language behind it. It was just, don't feel. You're not allowed to. Don't do that. That's not what you're supposed to do as a boy, as a young man, as a man. So I think that's kind of how it came about was, oh, okay, so then I just won't.
Would you feel comfortable explaining any particular stories that might be coming up specifically, just to maybe allow a listener to resonate with a personal story?
Yeah. The first thing that came up when you asked the question to begin with was, I remember my dad quite often saying things like, when we would cry, me and my brothers, I remember him saying to us, you want a reason to cry? I'll give you a reason to cry, And even just remembering that now, I'm about 40, 43, almost 44, and that was, when I was in single digits, young, is just like, it's so hurtful, because it's like you're feeling something and you just want to be reassured and you just want to be told it's okay and that what you're feeling is okay, and that is scary or whatever it is that I was going through. And instead it was, it was very much like, don't do that. And in fact, if you do that again, then I'll punish you. So It was very much, that's the first thing that kind of really came to me when you asked me the question, was like, not only are emotions and feelings not allowed, but you get punished for the expression or the experiencing of them, and then communicating that to other men, basically. I mean, even women sometimes, some women, they're brought up in the same sort of family style, and they consider like a weakness of sorts, that you're not their rock, you're not their person who can stand behind them, behind anything in that stoic man. But it's like, well, if I can't do that with other men, and I can't do that with some women, it keeps putting you into that space of like, well, then when can I feel these things? Who will allow me to do such a thing, So yeah, that's the story that.
When you were that young and experiencing that, like, you'll have something to pay for if you express your emotions, what would you think that younger self would be internalizing looking back?
I think, as children, my understanding is there's not a lot of thinking going on. It is internalized as a definition of self or somehow like how to be in the world. And I think what that taught me was just to hold things in. When you're experiencing these things, just don't do them because I will get in trouble for them. So I think it's really simple. I think I just internalized it as, don't do that because I'll get in trouble. So when I feel these things, try not to feel them, basically. That's, I think, how I internalized it.
And that kind of rippled out through your life?
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, the original kind of part of one of the thoughts that even got me into this idea of like thinking and feeling was, I was just remembering the last time I cried. And I was like, boy, the last time I cried, it wasn't even natural. Well, natural in the sense of I had just done a ceremony with ayahuasca. And so it's ceremony. It took me taking this plant medicine to release this ability to cry, because even when I would try to cry, I could sometimes quite literally feel it stop in my throat. That sensation of sadness and crying and all the emotions connected to that experience, it would just stop in my throat, quite literally feel it. And it would hurt sometimes, even because it's like I could feel myself just stopping that and not feel specifically crying and sadness, because it's like that was the biggest one that was very much like not allowed. Yeah, it definitely rippled in life that way.
How did it show up in your life? Like, I hear you say you suppress your emotions, but how did that negatively impact your life?
Like holding things in all the time, basically. How does that impact me?
Yes.
I think what happens for me is my understanding when I reflect on that very same question myself is like, well, how has this impacted me? It becomes this process where you're constantly trying to, when you feel something that feels impactful, instead of feeling it, I'm just ignoring it, right? And so how does that act in my life? How does that change my behaviors? I found that, I think what it made me
the way, sorry, but it could also be not just in the way that you are, but in the way your relationships panned out, the type of people that attracted in your life, the situations in your life, all those things.
Yeah, and I think the real foundation of that is the expression of frustration and anger and annoyance was the one that I allowed to do, right? Because my dad was always screaming, other men are, it felt like the only thing I could do. So how does that impact my life is, well, it made me not very close to a lot of people because I would always be losing my temper, right? And so not only that when you're feeling something with somebody or something like that, because I'm trying to ignore that experience and push it down, it changes the way you relate to people because you're trying to hold things in at times, or you're trying to avoid a certain feeling, and you're not even thinking about the connection you have. You're not thinking about the conversation or whatever it is that's happening in front of you. It becomes this process of continually just trying to hold this thing in, and I'm not even connecting in this moment. Like, I think about my son's relationship and mine. Before I really, really got into this work, I was just always feeling like frustration and anger were right beneath the surface, and all it would take was the slightest thing to make me lose my temper with him. When all it was going on was him being a child. But I would lose my temper, I would get upset, I would get frustrated, and I think that's how it ends up playing out in a lot of men's lives. But I can only speak for myself, but for me, that's how it played out.
So how old is your son?
My son's 12 now.
And so you're saying that by suppressing your sensations and emotions, the ones that you did allow was frustration and anger, it played out by just constantly being triggered into feeling those frustrations and angers.
It's the ones I'm allowed to feel that I've given myself permission to feel. So it ends up being right there at the surface all the time. So it didn't take much for me to just always be frustrated or annoyed or just quite literally just lose my temper. Well, what does that do in relationships? Well, it makes all relationships really difficult because everybody's walking on eggshells around you. Because it's like, who knows when this guy's going to blow up again, when he's going to be pissed about the smallest of things. So
is that really actually what occurred for your life? Is people felt like they were walking on eggshells around you?
Yeah. Once I came to the acceptance of like, boy, I feel angry all the goddamn time. Once I fully acknowledged it and accepted that is a truth of mine, that I actually do feel angry all the goddamn time, I began to ask people. So I even asked my son, I started to talk to him about basically I had asked him one day, if you could change one thing about me and if I could do better as a father and be a better father, what would you change? And he said that you wouldn't be so angry all the time. And then it's really hit me of like, he's right, and I've also come to the conclusion of like I do feel angry all the time, and that just made me kind of think about all the potential relationships that have been impacted by that. But here's the interesting part: in the reflection, I find that the acquaintances, strangers, coworkers, they never got that side of me. That the only people who were being impacted by my anger and temper were those closest to me. They were family, they were really close friends, and that was just kind of mind-blowing to me of like how I go to work, I hold this all in, I just deal with it all, everything's cool, I'm just trying to put this mask on and like everything's okay. But the ones that I love, I get to finally be myself, and what do you know, myself is pretty frustrated and angry about everything all the time. So it's like, it was just really eye-opening of like, holy crap, I don't want to do that anymore.
Why do you think you were able to show your true self at that moment with the people that were closest to you?
I think just reflecting on what type of relationships I want. And being a therapist, it's hard not to be confronted with insights and working with somebody because my curiosity about someone else's life and connect in their relationships makes me stop and pause, even in a session in my own mind, like, I've never asked myself that question. And so I think being a therapist has really been the catalyst for a lot of my change because it's hard not to be, being a therapist to me is like, you're just constantly exploring the vast kind of cosmic space of the human mind and the human condition. And through that process, it's hard not to do reflections and start to think about my own questions and my own, like, oh, I see. So I think that was the hugest part of it. Once I started to do reflections, I started to think about my own relationships and my own way of being in the world and realizing this isn't how I want to live my life anymore. I want to be happy. I want to laugh again. And that was a whole nother realization too. Like I was thinking one day, I can't remember the last time I had a really hard laugh. And the little things like that would just kind of pop up.
So you were just saying that you didn't feel like you were even laughing in life?
Yeah. That like just, just by doing reflections, it would be like little thoughts like that. I'd be thinking to myself, damn, when's the last time I laughed really, really hard?
Yeah.
It was hard to even pinpoint the last time I laughed really hard. And I realized, boy, the only expression of emotions or feelings I have is anger, frustration, annoyance, impatience. And everything else is just kind of sidelined, like everything else.
That's interesting, hey. But what do you think, like you could hold it all together while you were with other people that aren't your closest immediate family.
Yeah.
So what is it about being with the ones you love that created the triggers of the anger and the frustration?
My honest opinion, even as a therapist, when I think about it, like, no, is like you can only hold in things for so long. I mean, you can't mask all day, every day. And when you do, it's got to come out somewhere sometime. It seems like a really simple answer, but honestly, that's where I've come to. It's easier to put the mask on outside of the house because it's like you get to play the role anyways. Like, okay, I'm leaving the house. I am a therapist, or at this point when I really started to do this work before I became a therapist, I was still doing like manual labor stuff. So it's like, I'm just playing this role. Okay, I'm just going to do the work, get to work, do the work. When I'm at the store, even if I'm frustrated that the line is taking forever, it's just, I'm just here to buy the groceries or whatever. And it's like, it's easier to mask for some reason. And it's something I haven't really fully contemplated, but I think that it's just easier to mask in front of people who don't really know you because you can keep up that story, that plot line of like, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'm happy, everything is good in my life. But your family kind of sees you. And so I think it's hard to mask that all the time. I think that's the simple answer for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't know why. My experiences, it just felt easier to do that with strangers and people I didn't know than the ones I love, which seems backwards. You'd think it would be the other way, that it'd be, you know what I mean? Counterintuitive. You think you would do it the opposite. You would be able to try to keep the mask on with your family and the ones you love and just not give a shit about how you respond or how you look toward the world. But there's definitely some concern of how the world sees you,
Awesome. So let's see. The perspective shift that you need to allow yourself to feel your emotions and experience your emotions. They showed up for you in the past very negatively because you were suppressing them. The people that were most important in your life experienced the effects of that. So now that you have experienced the perspective shift, how would you say it now shows up differently? How do you show up differently in your life now?
I think I pause more often instead of try to figure things out, try to just allow my thinking process to just take hold right away. That's one thing that shows up. But I think what really has impacted me is such a small idea that because I feel more often, I allow myself and give myself permission to feel all the other stuff that I never was kind of given permission to. And it seems like such a small thing that like, oh, I give myself permission to finally feel all these feelings, to feel insecurity, to feel sadness, to feel even so much joy that I kind of makes me want to tear up or something. Like that simple act of just turning inward and saying to myself, I give you permission, man, just to feel this stuff. It has deepened my relationships because I express, articulate, I communicate more with people in my life in moments that I'm feeling something. Like, hey, I just want to tell you I really love you and appreciate your company and I feel this towards you. And so somehow feeling has helped me communicate more in a way that I feel is more transparent. And it just feels like it builds connection is the best way I can say it. Like feeling my feelings feels like it makes me help connect to the people in my life, to my work, to the outside world and, nature. It just makes me feel like I'm more connected to things because I'm feeling again.
Speaking of connection, how would you describe how your relationship with your son has changed?
Ever since I've really started on this path of like, hey, stop thinking your life and feel life, the one relationship that I've continually focused on is my relationship to my son. And because of that, I've just become so aware of like the pattern, the way I respond when he does a thing, the way even like my own narrative of what I believe is happening Like many parents will be like, oh, my son's just so lazy. He just sits around and doesn't do this and doesn't do that. Like it's shifted the way I even perceive him because I remember being a child. I remember having the feelings and having no language for it, feeling restricted in that. And so I try to give that space to him. I try to like give him space to feel, to express, and I become curious about him. I'm curious about like, what's going on for you? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Instead of just, you know, when I was losing my temper, it would just be, I'm impatient. So it's like, stop doing it. You know, I become curious. I want to know, what is he going through? What are you feeling? Why, even if he does something that, you know, maybe he's not supposed to be doing, I don't yell at him. I'm like, why did you do that? Were you not thinking, or what's going on?
So you become curious. And how has that affected the relationship itself, you and your son?
It's just made it so much closer, because in moments where I might notice the old pattern of my anger arising because of this thing that's happening, when I'm pausing and I'm like, okay, what is that coming from? Why am I feeling that way? Instead of just expressing what I'm feeling, the other thing that it's done is it's changed my reactionary moments of, oh, I feel this thing, so I'm going to react. Like I feel frustrated, so I'm just going to be frustrated. I pause and I'm able to respond to what it is I'm experiencing. And so when it comes to him, that curiosity has just made us more connected, because it's like I'm interested in the things he's interested in, instead of just being like, I don't want to do that because I feel tired and I'm feeling frustrated with my life. I'm like, what are you doing over there? You know, not projecting my stuff onto him is the biggest thing. Is just like he doesn't deserve that projection of what is going on in my life or how I'm feeling, and it's not for him to do anything to fix it or to do any, you know, in it, not fix it, but it's not fair to him to have that experience and that relationship with me purely because of what I'm going through. So it's made me very conscious of, that's my stuff, and that's what I need to work on. And I will put that aside, and I will do that on my own when he's not around. However, he's here, so I'm going to connect with him. I'm going to be curious about what's going on with him. I want him to know that, like, I care. And so that curiosity is very useful, because it's like, what game are you into, or what have you been listening to, or whatever it is he's into. I'm truly curious about it, and it makes us more connected because he feels seen, he feels heard, he feels like I actually give a shit, I actually care about him, that I actually do want to know who he is and what he's about.
And that's so
all the
important.
things. And I didn't get that when I was growing up. So I also kind of just sit there and go, sometimes I honestly just do think like, okay, how would my dad act? Just do the opposite of that in this moment, and it'll probably be the very thing that he needs. So, yeah.
Would you say that by allowing yourself to truly experience the feelings, that it has almost created a nervous system reset to allow newer perspectives and newer behaviors? That's
interesting. So has my allowance of feeling things somehow impacted how, like, my nervous system responds to, like, life itself, or?
Yes.
I'd say so. I would say, I wonder if there's a concrete example I can give, but my first initial response is yes, because when I'm sitting there and I'm responding from, I'm noticing that I'm frustrated about this thing because of my own stuff that's going on in my own life, instead of sitting in that frustration, right? Because that's a very specific experience inside the body, right? The frustration and anger and impatience. It's like, I might even tend to pace. I might be, that the body is quite literally tense, right? There's that tense in the shoulders and my fists maybe. So that's very, an activated nervous system, right? But now, in that moment of, I'm noticing I'm frustrated because of this other stuff that's going on in my life, but I'm not going to react to that. I'm not invalidating it or ignoring it. I'm just realizing that, however, doesn't take precedence over what I'm going through right now in this very moment, which is connection with somebody or something. And so it helps me find a sense of calm and groundedness, because it's the difference between, like, I'm noticing frustration versus I am frustrated. So it's like right? I'm observing frustration inside of my system, but I'm not acting on it. So therefore my nervous system isn't in that state of frustration. So it's not heightened, it's not dysregulated, or whatever it might be, right? I feel more calm, feel more relaxed. I can feel my body system, like, quite literally I don't have as much tension. I feel that I would say is more of a very obvious, like, okay, yes, definitely like feeling stuff and not reacting to it specifically, I think has helped that nervous system kind of reset. Because it's like, hey, just because I feel a thing doesn't mean I have to act on it or have to express it. It's just a feeling I'm having. So the more I get in touch with feelings and feel, the more I realize, hey, because you feel something all the time doesn't mean it's accurate. And also it doesn't mean I have to express that feeling in this very moment all the time. Like you start to make discernment of, oh, that feeling I'm having right now, and that's okay, and there's nothing I need to do about it. Sometimes it's just I'm aware of it, and that's all I need to do is be aware of it. So, yeah, so that's how I would describe that.
Okay. I had another one. You mentioned your dad. So we went through your main perspective shift. We went through how it showed up in your life previously. And then we went through how it has impacted your relationship with your son, and you feel much more connected and much more close. But I wanted to, if you're comfortable with that, to kind of go back to the conversation where you mentioned your dad and how when you were a kid and if you were upset crying, you're talking single digits here, and your dad would say, I'll give you something to cry about, right? And you mentioned in that moment that even thinking about it now, you felt a sensation coming up. If you think about it now, in this particular moment, does that sensation still arise?
Yeah, it's mostly sadness because it's like, you know, it made us so disconnected from one another, you know, our relationship.
Would you be open to allowing that sensation in this moment and just allow yourself to experience it while I'm here with you?
I mean, I am. I just, you know, my experience of it is just like this, you know, feeling in the chest of like, man, that must really suck for, you know, it sucked for me, but also I kind of like, as a father now, right, because I have a son, it makes me sad for him because it's like he doesn't have the relationship that I have with my son, which I adore that situation. So I think...
I feel like you're still thinking.
Well, the sadness is like, it's there, but it's like, I've worked through this already. I've processed it already.
If it's there, have you really processed it, or was it just a layer?
That's an interesting question because I think that there's infinite layers, always. I don't think you're ever done. But the discernment I've come to is like there's a difference between processing and finding that subtle layer and experiencing that subtle layer versus wallowing in your feelings, because there's one I feels like this is useful. This feeling, this experience is, let's use the word healing. All right, this is a healing experience. And I find other times where it's just wallowing. It's just a victimization. The experience isn't useful. You're just kind of using it as a way to be a martyr, or, you know, old patterns arise and you realize that's not necessary, right? So like in
Are you
this
saying
moment,
that if you were to allow yourself to notice, just to notice your sensations in this particular moment, that it would be a wallowing experience?
No, just that my expression of the experience that I'm having when you bring that up is being fully experienced, but it's not so energized and it doesn't have so much past like it used to, because I've done some of I've done some of the layering work. I've done some of that. So like, yeah, it still exists. Like I said, I honestly don't know if we're ever done with a thing. There's always going to be small layers because there's connections, present here and now stuff that's connecting me back to that stuff. So my expression of it in this moment is I'm feeling it, but that's how it's being expressed. It doesn't need to be expressed through tears or through...
It doesn't always have to be some grand gesture of expression. I understand what you're saying there. But for anybody that could be listening that has said, you know, I've never felt my emotions, I don't know how to feel my emotions, what could they, like, this is why I'm asking you to express and explain as what does it, or what can it look like if you're just noticing your sensations. So if you were to sit there with the sensations, just describe what's happening for you.
Yeah, okay. Stop trying to think. And it's just a matter of like, you know, thinking is useful because the very thing is I have to think about that moment. Think about like those times my dad was really, really harsh. So it's that's the tool you use to get there. And then the feeling is like, that you just pause as you're thinking about this experience, thinking about that moment, and it's like...
Right. So have you paused yet?
That's what I'm about to do. So like, you know, I'm pausing, and then it's like, It's an immediate, like, heaviness, in the chest.
So for the listeners right now, as you pause, you say you are experiencing an immediate heaviness.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where is this heaviness?
It's in the chest, right? So the experience of how I'm experiencing, just remembering that, is an immediate response in my body. I can literally feel like a heaviness in my chest.
A heaviness.
I could feel like, I could feel like almost like tears in the back of my eyes, like, like the formation of it almost is the best way I can describe it.
Okay, and what if we just notice that a little bit more?
That it just lingers, right? So that the feeling of the heaviness, again, I can only express what it is I'm feeling to you the best I can, and that is the heaviness stays. There is almost like the sensation of the tears wanting to come out, and then I can feel like just the tenseness in the body in general. Like even as I've noticed that for a second, I'm like, oh wow, my whole body is tense.
Your whole body feels tense.
Yeah, like the whole body, and then like, the shoulders are shrugged even a little bit, and it's like,
it's okay to take our time.
Maybe even it changes my breathing a little bit, like the rhythm, the depth of breathing. It makes me want to take a deep breath because I feel like I need to breathe deeply,
Now you need to breathe deeply. So then allow that breathing deeply. And
so that's what I did. I'll take a deep breath, and it's like, okay, that feels better.
Okay. So you took a deep breath, and now it feels better.
Yeah, because it's like acknowledging the experience, acknowledging how I feel, acknowledging how my body feels, acknowledging that there's some sensation of like sadness in the body that's being expressed through the heaviness and the tightness and the tears in the eyes. By just allowing myself to go through that and pause, it's like this natural process of like, okay, yeah, that was tough back then. Like it was just a natural processing of it. And then it's like the body naturally goes, okay, that was tough. That was tough. Let's take a deep breath. And it's like none of that is me trying to do that, like thinking about taking a deep breath and relaxing the body. Just like
it just happened. You watched it.
Yeah. And I just allow my body to respond to the sensations of sadness and thinking about that relationship with my dad. And it automatically just is like, oh, wow, like I feel really tense. You know what? Let's take a deep breath. And again, this is just me thinking out loud, but this is the best way I can describe my body doing its thing. And I'm just trying to interpret it into language. And that is, it's like, okay, let's take a deep breath now. Let's let that settle and know that.
So you just interpreted what you just experienced in those brief moments here.
Yeah, that's just what happens. It's like this natural flow of like feeling all the actual sensations, the actual experience of like the physiological sensations, and then my body wanting to take a deep breath because it's like, wow, that was really a hard time in my life kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did excellent.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing that experience with me.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we think that it's always going to be something really big, but sometimes it's that small, but something that small can be really shifting for people. Like to just simply stop, pause, experience what you're experiencing, not trying to change it, not to avoid it, not trying to do anything with it, but just to sit with it, the experience I'm having, and allow it to do whatever it's going to do, and know that you're okay. And I think that's the other thing that maybe I'll add to all this, like shifting from thinking to feeling. And if people are listening, what's helped me through that is I keep reminding myself, it's just a feeling. I'm okay. I just haven't felt many things before. So this sadness is really intense when you first start feeling it, because I've dulled it my whole life or avoided it my whole life. Or when I did feel frustrated, I always tried to at least try to dull it a little bit because I could feel like I was going to explode and become like a crazy man or something, So I just allow myself to feel it now. But when I remind myself often, like, it's just a feeling. Nothing bad is going to happen from this. I'm just feeling sadness. This is the experience of sadness, or this is the experience of insecurity, or whatever it is. Like I'm feeling fear, and that is okay. I just remind myself that of like, I'm going to be okay. It's just feeling. I just haven't had those in a long time or felt myself feeling in a long time, and that's okay. That's kind of part of that process too, is reminding myself like it's okay. It's just a feeling. Nothing bad's going to happen to you, buddy, kind of thing,
What would you say to the young men out there who are growing up likely in a similar culture where it's not okay for men to have feelings, it's not okay for them to express feelings? What piece of advice would you give young men, and any man for that matter, what is the best piece of advice you could give to them?
That if you feel like, hey, I'm holding my emotions all the time and they're experiencing the same experience I'm having, that I feel like I can't feel because my friends will make fun of me, my family makes fun of me, I'll be ostracized to some degree or something like, to that effect, right? The experience is like, that's what I'm trying to say is you have to say there are some people in your life that's going to allow you to feel and want to hear about what you're feeling and what you're going through, and there's safe people around you to be able to feel. And there's going to be people in your life that you're not safe to do that with. That's just the reality.
Would you say that for men who feel like they don't have that emotional safety net to allow themselves to feel and to be seen feeling, is it okay for them to seek outside guidance?
Yeah, I would say even if it's not therapy and it's not that, like, then just do it on your own when you're by yourself and that's how I started. I would go to the woods, I would sit in the woods, and I would just sit there and I would start thinking about things that were upsetting or thinking about things that are pissing me off or thinking about my childhood or whatever. And then I would just allow whatever to come up be. I would just start to feel it. So if you don't have that space and you don't have that even support anywhere, and there's literally no one that you can go to, you still have yourself. And you can start building that trust in yourself that I can handle this and I can just do this process on my own. Feeling vulnerable with yourself is, the other thing. If you don't have any space, you don't have support, and it's just you, then you just start to kind of trust yourself. And I would say both of them, I would say that really, now that we're really saying this now and I'm really thinking this out loud, but I'm offering people advice, I think that's the advice. Just go out on your own and just start to feel things on your own somewhere, someplace that feels safe. So you don't have to worry about, other human beings being there, because it can be really tough at first to share those moments with other people when you've never not really even felt it on your own by yourself, But then just sitting with yourself and being with yourself and feeling is probably the best place to start. It's just be in your own room, then go outside, do wherever you feel comfortable and just feel what you're feeling.
So I hear you say, trust yourself, bring yourself to a safe place, and allow yourself to feel what you're feeling is the best place to start.
Yeah. Just trust yourself to be okay and give yourself permission to just be like, this is what I'm feeling and that's okay. And there's nothing more I need to do other than just feel. I know it seems so simple, but I find the biggest shifts in my life have been the simplest things. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That is definitely the place to start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Miguel, so much for being on the show. I hope that anyone listening here has received immense value through this experience of talking with Miguel.
Thank you for this and allowing me to come and just share my own perspective on things because, it just feels good. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.